You ran a marathon on an oil tanker.
It was an oil tanker that was basically created to be an oil platform.
You're in the middle of the ocean. How many laps did you have to do around that damn thing, and how long did it take?
It was 350 plus laps, and it took 5 hours and 9 minutes.
Take us to the decision of, hey, I'm going to do this.
My buddy who works out on ship with me was like, dude, how cool would it be if you ran a marathon out here?
What is nutrition like, and how do you prioritize it?
For me, it's eating the dark chocolate, or it's prioritizing a 1 pound of deer meat.
You never felt closer to God than when you're hunting?
It's just one of those things that you take a lot of things for granted, and you go out there and you immerse yourself in nature, and you just feel so blessed, grateful, and there's just a sense of gratitude there that's just unparalleled in any other activity for me.
What's up, everybody? Gabe, Yanez, and I, we are joined today by Jordyn Merritt. Now, Jordyn, I'm super excited to have this conversation. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, which makes me even more excited. The most impressive thing that I saw, and I want to hear more about your background. But dude, you ran a marathon on an oil, is it referred to as an oil tanker? Is that the best way to refer to it?
So that's actually a great way of putting it, because it was an oil tanker that was basically created to be an oil platform, and we bring oil out of the ground. That's the best way of putting it. But yeah.
Dude, so, okay, I saw this video, and I know you're connected to our friends over at Jocko Fuel and at Origin. I know you're a big fan of their products and do work with them. But man, when I saw this, I was thinking to myself, running a marathon, as tough as it is. Gabe actually, he's ran marathon. He's a more of the endurance athlete than I am. But to run it on a oil tanker in the middle of the ocean, how many laps did you have to do around that damn thing, and how long did it take?
It was 350 plus laps, and it took 5 hours and 9 minutes. And to be honest with you, I really didn't train for it. I just kind of knew my baseline fitness, and I'd done some marathons prior, and I'm like, let's send it.
Dude. So go ahead, Gabe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so to be honest, that was the first thing that I stumbled on your Instagram page because of that. I know that, you doing that marathon has gotten shared a bunch, and a bunch of people talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, people ask you about it all the time. But since then, I appreciate a lot of the mindset stuff you put out and how you kind of approach training and all that. So definitely want to get to that and your background. But I'm super curious, you said, hey, I knew what my background in fitness was, and I said, just send it. How did the idea come up? Take us to the decision of, hey, I'm going to do this. Was this something pre-planned and that you were going to film, and hopefully it was going to be a piece of content that, kind of made it out into the airwaves? Or how did you come up with an idea of doing this, unique marathon with that many laps, which sounds absolutely, absolutely crazy?
So I actually ran my first marathon October of 23. That was my first one, and I actually did somewhat train for it. I'm kind of known for not training for them. I just kind of keep a baseline fitness, and I feel like running is more the mental thing for me. There's a lot of mental growth in that. So obviously I work out on an oil platform, and I started running up on the helideck, which is the helipad that the helicopters land on and take off from. That's how we get out there. And honestly, the steel decks were really tough on my legs, but after a while, you just kind of grow accustomed to it. And after a few weeks of running, I no longer hurt. So I think it was early 24. I was talking with one of my buddies, and that was when I started really posting on Instagram and trying to inspire others, especially in my hometown. I'm from a very small hometown, and I feel like everyone knows me around here, and I just wanted to make a difference. So started running, was into lifting prior to running. And my buddy who works out on ship with me was like, dude, how cool would it be if you ran a marathon out here? I'm like, yeah, that's kind of crazy, but I'm kind of down for anything. I'm like, maybe I'll do that. And I think it was my July hitch. I was out there. I do 28 days on, 28 off. I had run a little bit. I think if I look back at my Strava or Garmin, I'd run a couple 5 milers, and I ran one 12 miler. And then I'm like, I look at my buddy. He's like, let's do it. So went ahead and we planned it. We do 12-hour shifts. So I work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think I started running at 6:17. He brought up some peanut butter sandwiches, some electrolytes with Gatorade and water, and just kind of kept on running, plugging away. And it was definitely way harder than I thought it was going to be. But for the first 16 miles, I felt invincible. I really did.
Dude, that's so awesome. Now, I don't know if this is a stupid question, but maybe it is. Is there movement on this platform?
Yeah, so we do. There's just not to get into the details here, but there's a buoy turret mooring system that we basically revolve around, and that's where all the umbilicals and piping come up into. So we just swivel weather vane around it. So I'm sure my Garmin might be a little bit off either one way or the other way. But so, I mean, maybe I did run 26 miles, not 26.2, or maybe I ran 26.5 miles and not 26.2. It's kind of hard to judge, and it did track the swaying, but I'm really not confident in Garmin calculating how far that is around that helipad. So either way, man,
I don't think it matters. I mean, you still did something that's out of that's wild. Gabe, go ahead, and then I have a bunch of questions on this. I'm super intrigued on the
Jordyn,
oil tanker.
Did you have a plan going into it where you were going to do like a couple laps going counterclockwise, then clockwise? Like, were you doing any of that, or were you literally just like, I'm just going to run until this thing says 26 miles? And did you have to make any pivots as you were kind of going with your plan?
So prior to my first marathon, I'd run 16 miles out there on that helipad, which definitely sucked. And so prior, I did do a lot of running out there, and it's just kind of one of those things that you don't really think about, but you swap the pattern up. I do figure eights out there. I run in circles. I'll switch it up. So I really didn't have a set plan, but in my mind and prior to running out there, it kind of just all came together. I think my first stop to refuel was like 6.4 miles, something like that. And I would just stop for like a minute or two and then back at it.
So tell me a little bit more about like life, like your life. Like, I'm very intrigued at this because I came up in like the conventional gym model. Then I opened up gyms, and I've lived in the same place. I travel a lot for work, but it's like a couple of days here, a couple of days there. I don't know anyone who's in an industry like you. And so I'm like really intrigued by like what your life has been like and what you do for work and how you balance that, like being gone for a month, home for a month, training. There's just so much to unpack. So can you tell us, like, what do you do right now? Like, what is your career? What is your job currently? And like, what does that entail? Because it's something so foreign to me that I'm really intrigued on it.
Yeah, I hear you. So I grew up, I'm from a small town in northern Maine called Hodgson. I played sports. Growing up, I always wanted to be a state trooper, believe it or not. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Me and my dad mowed lawns, and we mowed one of the big places up here, Troop F, State Trooper Unit. And I was always intrigued by that. Well, then my dad's best friend kind of got me on this shipping and oil field because that's what he did for his career. So I was intrigued by that. And we actually have one of the most prestigious schools in the nation, Maine Maritime Academy. I went there. I graduated from there in 2021. Oh, so good there?
Yeah.
Okay. I graduated from there in 2021 with my marine engineering degree. And your marine engineering degree is basically, the best way to describe it to like you guys are a civilian would be if you go on a cruise ship, that main propulsion system that drives that cruise ship is a diesel engine. And then you have your potable water systems, which is water for the whole ship, whether it's potable water systems that drive your flushes, your sinks, or drinking water. You've got air compressors on there, fuel pumps, freshwater generators, which make water from salt water through heat and vacuum. Just it's little simple systems like that. We're kind of a jack of all trades out there. We work on refrigeration, we work on compressors, fuel pumps, water pumps, diesel engines. We're kind of a jack of all trades. We're not really good at one thing, but we're pretty solid at everything out there.
Wow.
Because I would assume that out there, the thinking is you can't have a bunch of specialists. You can't have a bunch of people that are like really good about fixing one specific thing. You have to have jack of all trades, because how many people can you really have out there?
Yeah, exactly right. Our POB out there is like 90. I want to say like 40 of them are painters, which just take care of the corrosion and corrosion prevention on the ship.
Huh.
And then you've got a few mechanics, a few marine engineers, which were required to be on the oil platform because of the diesel engine. But yeah, like honestly, one of my favorite things to learn about is pumps. I'm not great at working on pumps, but it's a fun thing to learn about. And we've got guys that are really good at working on pumps, guys that are great at troubleshooting refrigeration. So we work as a team out there. There's about 5 of us out there, marine engineers, and then we just kind of collaborate on everything, learn how to troubleshoot stuff. We're operators. We've got steam turbines that drive our cargo pumps to offload the oil that we bring on. We're bringing on like 19,000 barrels a day from the wells down below, which I won't get too much into, but yeah, it's pretty cool being out there.
Was it ever something that was a tough decision for you? Like specifically the schedule. And then I'm also curious, like how active you are. during the work? Because a question that we get a lot, obviously we do training programs for people, is that we do have a lot of people that are on shift work. We have a lot of law enforcement. We have a lot of people that, have non-conventional schedules, right? Like they're not doing a 9 to 5 and then get a workout in before or after. They have crazy schedules, but obviously nothing as unique as this. So I'm curious what your training looks like. Like, are you going super hard when you're at home and then just kind of like trying to maintain while you're working? Is it kind of the same? Like, what does all that look like?
Yeah. So I currently work 4 weeks on, 4 off, and it differs with each company, the schedule rotation. So how I balance that is I got huge into jiu-jitsu, like within the last couple of years, last year and a half. Yeah, heck yeah, man.
Let's go, baby.
And yeah, shout out to the Jocko Fuel Origin team. They got me into that. But yeah, so I'll focus more on jiu-jitsu and just kind of run or lift. I'll kind of do 2 of those 3 in one day while I'm home. And then when I'm out on ship, I'll watch like wrestling and jiu-jitsu videos just to kind of keep that muscle memory. But I'm lifting every single day out there, and I run 4 to 5 times a week, whether it's either 1 mile, some days it's 2 miles, but I always just kind of make sure I'm working out at least once per day out there. And then at home, like I hit my 200 push-ups this morning. I'm going to hit my 12,000 step goal. I'm going to eat something that's probably like deer meat or moose meat, a pound of that. And I feel like just having little things like that in your daily routines, they stack up over time. And consistency is like, I think I'm trying to think of it. It's like the best way to describe me. I've never been very intentional with my training or followed a training program outside of benching 315, which I failed at. I only benched 310, but that's the only time I've followed the training program. And consistency is the result of what I've done. And I don't know, I just feel like consistency is so underrated, and you just start stacking those days, and it's very important.
Jordyn, how old are you?
I'm 26.
26. I mean, you're young for a lot of the guests that we've had on. And to me, it's refreshing because it feels like it's so clear to you how important these things are, and the discipline and the consistency. Is that something that like, you remember like your dad always had that, older siblings, like where does that come from, being someone that's, relatively young and seems to like, be really like, hey, this is where I'm going. And I'm even remembering a recent post on your Instagram that I was looking at about, I think was it your brother or a buddy of yours, and just like, hey, like dedicating, improving our VO2 maxes, which, not a lot of 26-year-olds are like, hey, this is what we're going to work on.
Yeah. So that's actually one of my best friends, Dan Swallow. He's huge into hunting, and we honestly met this year. It's funny how you meet people at certain times in your life. And I really believe God put him there and put me there at the perfect time. He was going through a little bit of a drought, and me as well. I was kind of just going through the motions, and we feed off each other. And it's important to have a brother that drives those same principles and values and morals that you drive.
100%. It's so funny. We talked about like the biblical reference of iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. And, I host weekly men's club workouts where we get 40, 50 guys in a parking lot just to throw down. And like every week, it just like kind of like revitalizes you and makes you want to level up and become a better person. And so I want to ask, well, let me ask you this.
But real quick.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on, I know I kind of went to the route where you asked about Dan, whether he was my brother or not, but following up with that question, throughout high school, I was always kind of like, I did start as a point guard, but I was a third option. I was never a really great athlete or never born really talented. So that's kind of my mission, is to show people that to be the best version of yourself, you don't need to be crazy talented or born gifted, because you're trying to be the best version of yourself. You're not trying to be the best version of someone else. And I think in today's world with comparing yourself on social media, it's so important to just remember that, like, you're not trying to be someone else. You're trying to be the best version of you, and the best version of you serves the people around you, your family. You guys just had a recent episode on here about like the dad bod thing. And I love that episode. It's a great one, but the best version of yourself supports everyone around you. And the best version of you helps people out and helps them become the best version of themselves. So that's kind of my whole mission. As far as the drive, my dad used to work 7 days a week. He still does in the summer. He mows lawns, cuts grass. I don't know the term where you guys are from, if it's cuts grass or mows lawns, and my mother always carried 2 jobs. Honestly, they divorced my senior year of high school when I went through a pretty bad breakup. I've been through 3 pretty bad breakups. Thankfully, I'm with my beautiful fiance now, and we got plans to marry this year. But I honestly think breakups is one of those things that when you're in the moment, you're like, man, this is like terrible. And they do suck, but it is such an opportunity to grow. And yeah.
Can you dive in a little bit more on that? I mean, I don't know how much you want to divulge or go into, but I'd love to hear your perspective on relationships, because I think, my perspective is different than Gabe's and different than yours, right? My wife and I, we met when we were 14. We've been together ever since. So I don't have that same experiences. And I imagine there's a lot of growth, but a lot of pain that comes from that. But I want to ask you, because you're gone for a month, home for a month, and you just got engaged. Like, how do you keep that relationship strong when you're so distant? And what lessons have you learned through the previous 3 hard breakups that maybe the women listening to this show can kind of like lean into and get some perspective from?
So I think the most important thing is ownership. In every single one, there's a little bit of, whether it was mostly me or mostly them, I always try to look at it, hey, how can I get better for the next relationship? And how can I be a better person for the next woman that comes into my life? That was kind of my mindset probably on the second breakup or the third. There's 3 different ladies, all great people. And but looking back, you're in just such a drought. You honestly think it's the end of the world, and you have so much negative energy built up. I'm just thankful for a really good group of friends and brothers that kind of kept me stable throughout it all and pushed me towards the gym. And the gym is just such a perfect place to turn that negative energy into positive energy. And instead of having a negative outcome and go down slope and move the needle in a negative direction, you start moving it in a positive direction. And I just, as far as relationships out on ship, it can be tough. It can be really tough, but I honestly think it just strengthens it more. I'm gone for 4 weeks. Honestly, at the end of the day, I work out and I go to bed. It's just very little about her day, very little about my day. But when we get home, I feel like we're very intentional with bonding, making sure we have our date nights. And it's something I do want to get even better at, because I feel like as you grow up with this person and the years stack on, it's very easy to get out of the, so to speak, honeymoon phase. So I want to be very intentional with keeping that honeymoon phase and just make sure that she knows I prioritize her in life.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's good perspective, especially for you at a younger age. Like, I'm 39. We've been together. My wife and I have been together 25 years. And wow, even just saying it just makes me feel old. Dude, my wife and I have been together basically as long as you've been alive. That's crazy for me to think about. I feel hella old right now. But anyways, I think that's super wise of you, like, to prioritize that relationship and keep it going and recognizing it will get more difficult, right? Especially as you have kids and different things, but keeping that relationship strong, I think, is critical. So I love that mindset.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I are about to have our 5-year anniversary, and we've been talking about it a lot. Not as much time as Jason, obviously, but I think that the principles that you're talking to will always apply regardless of like the seasons changing. We talked about it on a recent podcast with, like, we've gone through a major change over the past 2 years, because we went from no kids to 2 kids in like a pretty short window. And that changes so much. And I think that that's one of those pivotal times with what you were saying, Jordyn. You could easily, our honeymoon phase is over, and we've kept the good of that, but it's easy when 2 kids are involved to kind of like start becoming roommates in some ways. And so we've been really intentional about that stuff and making sure that, like, the date nights and all that's still a priority. So regardless of the season that you're in, everything you just talked about applies. It's just going to apply a little differently down the road. But man, that stuff is so important. And it's a good reminder, regardless of, 14 years together, 5 years together, about to get married, like all that stuff, it always applies, man. And it's a good reminder. We all need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we're always trying to figure it out. I'm a young guy, and I think it's important to choose a partner where you're both in it together, and there's going to be obstacles that you come across in life that you need to figure out together. And it might suck for one or both of you, but it's important to just prioritize it. You love each other, and to find out, figure it out, and move on from it and grow in the process.
Single most important decision you'll ever make in your life, right? That's what they say. And I wholeheartedly agree. That's it. The person that you're hitching on to, man, that is the single most important decision. So yeah.
Jordyn, I wanted to ask you something that is became more and more apparent to me through like recently we put out a survey to people that utilize our service, our training programs, and it became really apparent to me that many men who are not reaching their potential, and I'd say women as well, are struggling on the nutrition side. And I think the reason why this is for you, you're on this tanker with, I don't know, 90 guys, 60 guys, et cetera. I imagine, what is nutrition like and how do you prioritize it? Because you're on a 12-hour, like you're like the epitome of like a difficult schedule, right? You're on for 12 hours, you're off for whatever, for 4 weeks. How do you work your nutrition? What kind of staples do you include? And how do you stay consistent there?
Yeah, so I would say 95%. I'm 95% at home with my nutrition versus like 90% out on the ship. There's a saying that out there that goes, it's much easier to resist temptation when you're not around it. And when you're out on a ship and you have a room full of all these goodies and the people baking out there, they do so well. I mean, cheesecake is my Achilles heel. But it's important my first few days out there to not go around those things. And then as you start stacking the days, you build momentum. And then it's so much easier to say no when you're rolling forward with no sweets on day 3 of no sweets or whatever it is. And I think there's 2 fried Fridays out there. That's what we call them anyways, where just a bunch of fried food. It's really important to protein load on those days. In the morning, we've got protein powder out there. Me and the boys, we always bring protein powder. So in the morning, I'll have 1 or 2 protein shakes, depending on the menu for the day. I'll have a tuna fish sandwich. I'll load up on just tuna. I'll put tuna in a bowl. And I don't try to make a relationship with the food. I just know I kind of look at food as a fuel, which I know you guys do as well. And it's important to view it as a fuel rather than have a relationship with it. I'm a huge killer for dark chocolate. My fiance is definitely going to laugh when she hears this because the last few nights the Christmas candy has been unreal. But it's so important to prioritize the good things and prioritize the right fuel. And then if you indulge in a few other things throughout the day, I honestly think it's going to be fine if you're doing everything else.
Dude, Gabe, sounds like
the step thing is huge for me. The 12,000 steps. I think it's like 10,000 steps. You can burn like an extra 300 to 900 calories.
People don't realize, man, that stuff adds up so much. A lot of people think that, hey, I went to the gym this morning, but if you're spending the entire rest of the day sitting down doing nothing, someone like you that's taking 12,000 steps and maybe didn't even have time to get like a long workout, you just did something quick, you're putting a lot more into the the exercise bank account than that other person. And people forget because it's like, well, it's just walking, but it's movement. Movement's movement, dude. 12,000 steps, that's awesome. And it's cool that you're consistent with that.
I think my biggest takeaway, go ahead, Jordyn, sorry.
Just one more thing that kind of I apply to nutrition is James Clear. You guys familiar with him, the author of Atomic Habits?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a quote out there. It's part of one of the principles and lessons in the book. It goes, every decision you make is a vote for the person you want to become. And that goes to every single micro decision you make in a day, whether for me, it's eating the dark chocolate or it's prioritizing 1 pound of deer meat. And every little decision you make, whether it's to meet your step goal, to meet your push-up goal, to train or not train, to sit on the couch and watch TV or go for a 10-minute walk, it's like Gabe said, all those add up. Especially 365 days in a year. You look back, what decisions did you make every single day that's going to make you who you are today?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of point out, and by the way, dude, I love you talking about, yeah, man, I'm gonna have a pound of deer meat, a pound of elk. Like, you're not saying like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a couple ounces or whatever. You're like, no, bro,
yeah.
I'm shutting down a pound of this meat.
Jordyn, you said moose
if I'm
meat
throwing
too, right?
deer meat, I'm eating that whole thing. Yeah, moose meat. Yeah, my fiance got her Grand Slam, the main Grand Slam. So she got her turkey, whitetail deer, moose, and black bear.
What's moose taste like? Is it similar to venison? Is it similar to deer?
Yeah, it's honestly like venison, but a little more Hamburg taste, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Deer and elk are definitely more gamey meats.
Huh. Sounds tasty then. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff.
I would just say the biggest takeaway that I have, and again, based on this survey and how nutrition was a really big sticking point for a lot of people that listen to the podcast, but are also on our training programs, is that the prioritizing protein, I don't know if people recognize just how powerful that is. And I think that you brought up a really great point where you're talking about these fried Fridays, right? And it's funny, we have this thing called the Train Hard 5. And I feel like the TH5, and I feel like you just literally just nailed it. And so what it is it's 5 parts. It's prioritizing protein every meal. It's 3 meals a day. It's making sure that you're like this 90-10 rule. So like you're in it 90% of the time, but you're off of it 10%, kind of like your dark chocolate. It's making sure that it's getting rid of alcohol. And then it's also taking like kind of progress photos throughout the week, like one a week. And so the progress photos keep you on track, all these different things. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you prioritize protein on Fried Fridays, it gives you this full and sensation of like you're not super, super hungry. So you're not going to go out there and just immediately go smash your face with everything you see. You might have some of it and that's cool, but you just brought up a really good point. Like whether it's protein powders, whether it's tuna or whatever, you're front loading these proteins so you don't feel starved to go grab that Fried Friday and just shut the place down. So you're hitting the nail on the head for us.
Yeah, protein is definitely very satiating. And when you prioritize your protein, your hydration, I'm a big advocate for creatine. So I'm prioritizing all those really good things. And then it all just kind of falls in place after that. I'm hitting my step goals. I'm working out, running, whatever it is. It's okay that if I indulge in one little square piece of dark chocolate, it's not going to hurt me.
Everyone's just got to do what Jordyn's doing. I'm telling you, everyone just do what Jordyn's doing. If you want to dial in your nutrition, you're hitting the nail on the head. I'm curious, Jordyn, how did you? Because you said you found BJJ a year and a half ago, linked up with the Origin Jocko Fuel guys. Like, how did all that happen? What's the connection there? I'm curious.
So my younger sister's boyfriend and baby daddy, Ty's gonna hate me calling him that, but
Ty, we know Ty
Nichols, yeah. That's honestly how I got hooked up with all of them. And,
got it.
Yeah, it's so funny because they announced pregnancy last year. I was out on ship, so they FaceTimed me. I'm like, oh, Ty's locked into the family. Let's go.
Nice. Yeah, so that's honestly, the connection.
Yeah, I met Ty, and then I've met Ian and Jake and the whole team, Pete, Keegan, all great guys, JP, and it's just a really good group to be around.
So talk to me about the jiu-jitsu just briefly, because Gabe brought it up, not me. What did you have any interest before you started, and then how was your entry into jiu-jitsu? Because you're more recent than I am, and so I'm just curious, like what that journey looked like. Because we're getting Gabe on the train here in the next, I'd say, year or two.
Let's go. Next month or two. Come on. But so my dad watched UFC all the time growing up. He'd buy the DVDs back in like the early 2000s. I was a huge Tito Ortiz fan, but my favorite all time is I'm drawing a freaking blank, but
the Gracie?
Matt Hughes.
Matt Hughes. Yeah.
My favorite, good old Firing Boy. But so I always watched UFC. Always been a huge UFC fan, and I always kind of told myself, I'm like, yeah, being in the gym is cool and being strong, but if you can't fight or protect your family, then what is it truly worth? Not to call out anyone. I'm not.
No, hey, we talk about this a lot on the show. We do. Yeah. We talk about this a lot.
And so I go out on ship, and it's still, I mean, we're talking 2021. I still have yet to commit to training. And it's been said prior to it, I'm not taking credit for this, but the hardest belt to get is the white belt. And I truly believe that, because stepping on the mats takes all the courage in the world to do that. And there was a place an hour and 20 minutes south of me that I showed up to the gym with some encouraging words from Ty and one of my supervisors out on ship to go out and just get on the mat, just do it. And so I trained down at Titan in Bangor, Maine for, I think, 2 or 3 times. Then I found out about Gracie Fighter up in Caribou, Maine, which is an hour and 10 minutes north of me. And that's under Sean and Grace Cerveny. And they're under Cesar Gracie. They're under Darren Cooley. They're like Northern California. That's their lineage. And he actually grew up training with the Diaz brothers, Nick and Nate. So I'm like, wow, these guys are pretty legit. So I kind of just started going up there, and I've made the hour and 10-minute drive one way and hour and 10 minutes back for the last 2 years when I'm home. It's almost 2 years. 2 years in beginning of April. So in reality, I've only trained technically, I think 8 or 9 months because I'm gone for half the year. But I do try to be intentional out on shit. But yeah, jiu-jitsu, man, that's like number one priority when I'm home.
What about it from your first experience made you like, this is 100% worth the hour 10 drive there and the hour 10 back? Like what was it?
That's a big commitment. Yeah.
Getting my ass kicked. Really. I mean, I knew I was going to get absolutely pummeled when I went up there. There was no doubt about it. But I'm a pretty strong guy. I figured I might be able to hold my own or at least not get tapped out. But getting on the mats and being even more humbled than I initially thought. And it's not even like a terrible feeling. It's like, wow, these guys truly care about not only themselves, but you too. And it's such a good skill to have. I mean, I've got a fiance I love more than anything. I've got a family that I would do anything to protect, kill, and die for. And if I truly say those words, I want to actually truly have the skills and be a weapon, really. So that way I'm not just talking these words, that I can actually show up if the day ever comes, which I pray it doesn't come, but I'll be ready if it does.
Yeah, Jason's been trying to convince me, but I think Jordyn's going to be the one that gets me now.
Bro, Jordyn,
I'm a white belt too, man.
Yeah, Jordyn, you just dropped the mic on that, bro, because you know what? You're practicing what you preach, right? You're saying, hey, look, I'm not going to lie. I have like 5 jiu-jitsu gyms right around me, and there's one that's literally probably, I don't know, 30 seconds away from my house, like honestly. And even in those days, sometimes it gets tough to go and train. But here you are saying you're going to drive an hour, 10 minutes to go train. I just think that's a huge and consistency in jiu-jitsu is really important. When you're gone, looking at BJJ fanatics and looking at videos and understanding the tutorials, I think could really help. You could also have like a training dummy, which is fine. But I mean, finding somebody on the ship, who also is interested in then flow rolling with them would be really, really cool. But if you had time, I mean.
Yeah, actually my supervisor that got me into it, Chris, he is a blue belt. He stopped training a while ago, which this is my way of telling him to get back on the mats. But he does have 2 kids that he loves right to death and an awesome family. But he actually pro fighted and he's 1-0 through the NEF, New England Fights up here. So he was one of the driving forces to get me onto the mats. But it does almost feel like I take 3 steps ahead and then 2 steps back when I go out on ship. I do try to do ghost drilling. But this year, and even not with just jiu-jitsu, definitely jiu-jitsu, prioritizing jiu-jitsu. But my fitness, running in general, I'm trying to be very intentional this year. I've got a notebook. I'm writing everything down. I actually downloaded the Runna app, and I'm going to be prioritizing. I'm actually running a 50-miler on April 25th up here in Maine. So I just want to be very, very intentional this year. And I feel like when you actually plan, planning is part of being intentional. And that's what I want to do this year. I've kind of just went through the motions and just stacked days of being consistent and just kind of went through the motions and built a really good system versus being very intentional about my training programs.
Jordyn, with your career and what you're doing, what does the evolution of that look like? Like, is this kind of the schedule that's going to be, for years and years to come, or is there kind of like a next step? Like, what does that look like?
So, I mean, the oil field sadly is kind of in a political spot. I mean, 5 years down the road, it might end up it might go in the negative direction. It might go in a way more positive direction. Right now, it's pretty stable as of right now. But so basically you have tiers. You're a 3rd engineer. That's what I got my license out of college with. You graduate with a 3rd engineer's license. And then you go 2nd, 1st, and then chief engineer. And chief engineer is kind of like your head guy out there as far as the engineering department. So technically, chief engineer is about as high as I could go. Technically, I work for Crowley, but we work on Shell's owned FPSO, which is the Turritella. But so if I got a job with Shell, I might be able to go like a mechanic or landside engineering role. But to be honest with you, my dad owns a property maintenance company. He mows lawns and does a little bit of carpentry work. And I can see myself anywhere from 3 to 10 years taking that over. And I just value being at home more than anything and being at home with the people I love. You got one life to live. Why would I want to waste 6 months out of the year doing that? And don't get me wrong, the money is great, but money would never hold me back from doing the things I want to do in life.
I love it, man. I love your mindset. And the reason I was asking is, one message that we try and really hammer home on the show is the fact that it's never too late to start turning things around and getting on the right track, working on your nutrition, working on fitness. We had a guest, Alec Blennis, the other day, who was telling us about his grandfather, who was like a chain smoker, like a pack a day guy till he was like 67, and then picked up running and has now done like a marathon, bunch of Spartan races. And he's like, just like absolute badass. And that's inspiring on one end of the spectrum. But what I think is really worth pointing out with your story and your mindset is like on the other end of the spectrum is this thing of like, dude, you're building such an incredible hedge right now when, and I don't want to assume, but I'm assuming that, you know, kids are probably in your future kind of plan and that's something that you want to do. So like things are going to get busier. You're going to need to be home a lot more. There's going to be more responsibilities, and everything that you're doing now, the consistency, the stacking that you're doing, not that I ever foresee based on your mindset that you're ever going to like not train or not prioritize your fitness. But when you don't have all that time, when you maybe the hour 10 ride to the BJJ gym does become unrealistic to do every day when you're back, you've already put in all this work early on. And I think that that's on the other end of the spectrum, like that much more inspiring. So I think that that's really cool. And that's why I was asking, because I wonder if you've thought about, and it sounds like you have, like how priorities will change and, you know, wanting to be home will be that much more important and kind of what the flexibility is of that. But I think you're doing everything now so that you have that flexibility because you build that hedge early on. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And I honestly think whether it be taking over my father's business or not, can you guys hear those dogs? Hold on one second.
Hey, I couldn't even hear the dogs, but whatever.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
I don't know. Someone might have pulled in the driveway, but yeah. And back to that, whether it's taking over my father's business or not, I truly believe if you do have a passion for something and you're a really hard worker and you're intentional about that hard work and you're applying it in the right places, really any dream that you have, if you're truly passionate about it, I believe you'll be good at it and you can make something out of it, whether it's money, being successful in the happiness aspect. Be passionate about something, be intentional about it, and work hard. And I really feel like those three things add up to whatever you want.
How everything that you've done, I'm curious because I know you said, you know, small town, and then you're working on this.
And it's cold as hell right there, right now, right?
Oh, dude, 29 degrees today. It's pretty warm, actually.
That's funny. Would you say that like a lot of your like friends and kind of like inner circle, like has fitness and all this discipline and all these things that you talk about, has that been a big part of their life? And then if not, like, has that changed a little bit with you kind of being this beacon? Because one question that we get a lot is, you know, I'm sure you're inspiring, and this podcast is part of it, inspiring a lot of guys out there to be like, damn, like, I got to get my shit together. But it's a little tougher to do that with the people closest to you. We get a lot of questions about like, you know, like, how do I get my spouse involved? How do I get like my parents involved? So have you noticed that at all? And what's your like inner circle, family, community? What's their take on fitness and what's their opinion on all the stuff that you're doing?
So honestly, I get more joy and value and happiness out of that when someone tells me that I've made a difference in their life than I do for my own results. My best friend, Noah Nash, huge shout out to this guy. He's coming up on a year sober in the next few months. And this is a guy that I'm not going to talk about his own story, but he actually was in the military for, I think, 4 years. And he had some very like hardships with alcohol, didn't know how to deal with it. And I mean, this is a guy that could put back some alcohol. This is the guy that used to send me Snapchat pictures of just drinking, whatever. That was his lifestyle. This guy is almost 1 year sober. He is sending me pictures of his VO2 max now. He's sending me pictures of his new running shoes, him lifting weights, him running in the dark at like 12 a.m. at night, midnight. Huge shout out to that guy. But it's those things right there that I feel like it makes worth posting about. And there's been no doubt I have lost some friends, or friends I thought, from posting because they get annoyed or they're like, this guy is a freaking fraud or whatever. And they just get so annoyed with my posts. And honestly, I think that's driven from insecurity on their end. And I've been an insecure person. We're all insecure about little things in life. But there's a group of guys I train at my alma mater, Hodgson High School. There's 4 sophomores. They're huge into sports. And I have them down here training all the time. And they share all my stuff. They comment. And we have a little Snapchat group called Labeled Gym. And these guys are sophomores. They're like 16-year-olds. And they'll send me push-ups per day. They'll send videos of them doing push-ups, lifting weights. And I feel like that's what it's all about. Seeing them improve is like everything to me. Seeing my father go down to our home gym and make the decision to go down and lift weights versus go upstairs and watch TV. It's the little things like that that make this all worth it.
Dude, let's go. This is firing me up, man. I
got aged again, Gabe, because he used the word Snapchat. I have never even been on Snapchat. Like
I actually probably use Snapchat way more than I should, because I've got friends that are like, "You got Snapchat, bro?" I'm like, dude, I just find so much more value in sending a picture of my face to my fiance and getting one back, or sending videos of us doing push-ups or running. Like, sometimes I'll just go outside and run and have some message to say, because running is like, as you know, Gabe, I'm sure you know too, Jason, just through working out, but running is the ultimate dopamine hit. You come up with the craziest ideas. Like, that's my idea generator, is out there running on a 5-mile run. Next thing you know, I'm like, I feel like I'm Jocko or David Goggins out there talking to the phone, and I'll send it to my buddies with some motivational thing I either thought of or recited from some book I read. Because honestly, I'm not a big book reader. I'll read like 5 books in a year, but I'm very intentional with the lessons I learned from those books to actually apply the good things from those books in my life.
Which one are you, what's on your list? So it's funny, this morning, well, we have a debate, and I'll just ask your opinion. If you listen to a book on Audible.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Audible counts. Audible counts.
My man.
I knew that. I'm just listening to your guys' podcast talking about, or maybe it was a clip or a reel.
Yeah, it was a clip.
But I do find a lot of value in reading, because I feel like it takes more discipline. You're setting time aside in your day. And for me, it's 5 pages a day. And whether that 5 pages turns into 50, or it's 6 pages, or even just 5 pages, I feel like I never do read just the 5 pages, but
right.
I'm like very intentional with my reading. I highlight whatever. Now with Audible, it's a little less intentional. I'll be like on a drive or on a run, and I do find my times like replaying certain things, but I'm a huge advocate for writing down your ideas, whether it's work related or not. For me, it's obviously social media related, and any ideas I get through reading or listening to an audiobook or podcast, I'll just bring up my notes off my phone, whether I'm on a run or just sitting down, and I'll just write it down right there. Because ideas pop in and out of your head so easily. You could forget a really good idea in 5 minutes.
What books are on your list? What books have you currently read that you think would be powerful? I got a couple on my list right now that I'm looking at.
So right now I'm reading Relentless by Tim Grover, and I actually replied to your guys' podcast story. Really good book. I'm like 20 pages in, but I honestly think it's going to be a life changer. Prior books I read that have really made a difference and impact in my life would be Atomic Habits by James Clear, Extreme Ownership by Jocko, Endure by Cam Hanes, and then it's not fitness related, but Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Really good book that I feel like every high schooler should read, and even older than high schooler. It just sets you up to have a little bit of knowledge on finances prior to going out and being an 18-year-old who can spend a ton of money. But as far as on my list, I got to admit it, I've kind of found a cheat code to reading, and it's opening up ChatGPT, and I'll look up, I'll be like, top 10 lessons from this book. And then I'll kind of read through those lessons, and I'll be like, and some of them I write down, some of them are like, some of them I'll apply to my life, but I'll still read the book regardless, because there is a lot of things that ChatGPT isn't going to pick up and list there. Like 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. I'm like, this looks like kind of a thick book. Like, I'm only a 5 book per year kind of guy. This might make me a 2 book per year kind of guy.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
I brought that up on ChatGPT, and that's one of those books I just kind of pick up and set down once in a while.
That's smart though. It's being intentional with your time, man, and knowing that there's nothing necessary about like reading 50 books in a year, 40 books in a year. Like, that's a lot of time. Like, you're trying to get to BJJ and work out and do all these other things. Like, you just got to be intentional, man. I'm curious, and BJJ included, what have you kind of you set as your fitness goals for this year? Because I saw you post about, like, you know, being more intentional this year, having some things that you're actually going after. You mentioned the 50 miler, but I'm curious, like, what do you have lined up for 2025?
So I've got a sub 3:15 marathon, which honestly, I'm trying to get sub 3, but
love it.
So is Gabe. Let's go.
And that's soon, isn't it?
I mean, so it's this week, but I'm dealing with this injury. I'm like 50-50 on running it at all. But yes, that's the goal.
Well, I don't know
you mean
anything than you, but
50-50 Gabe as in like right now? Like when is the race? How many days from now?
It's in exactly 9 days.
Oh, okay. 9 days.
I got some time. If I'm pain free, I was talking about it with my wife this morning, actually, because the thing is, I don't want to do it to just mess myself up for like 2-3 weeks. Because I have this sciatic nerve pain that just gets aggravated whenever I run currently. And I'm working on a bunch of stuff to get it better. But anyway, the race is this weekend. It's 9 days from now. And I'll probably make a call like, the Friday before and see if I'll go after it or not. But love that goal. 3:15.
Oh, yeah.
Sub 3 hours.
Best wishes to you, man. I hope you crush it.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, sub 3:15, 3:25 bench press,
Yes.
sub 5:20 mile, like run a mile in less than 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Run an ultra marathon, but not just your typical over 26.2 miles. I really want to hit the 50-mile mark, which is set right now for April 25th. So stay tuned for that one. That's going to be a doozy. But and actually, I set up the Run app to only prepare me for a 31 miler. So I'll be able to get those 19, I think, without a doubt. Something will bring me there. I'm a huge advocate for finding something that scares the living hell out of you and going out and accomplishing it, because that is like the true confidence builder. I mean, even that oil field marathon or even running my first marathon, it's like those things truly scared me. I'm like, I really don't know if I can do this. Jiu-Jitsu scared me. I really don't know if I can do this. Some days I really don't think I can do it. But I go out there and it's huge when you accomplish something that you just never thought you could have in your life. I remember being a little kid and looking up at marathon runners thinking, these guys are on a pedestal. Like they're way above everyone else. But that's part of my message. I'm just an ordinary guy, average Joe, not born with a lot of talent or gifted guy, and going out and doing things that people don't think are average. So
is jiu-jitsu on the list at all for 2025? Are you thinking about competing at all in that?
Yeah, I'm going to compete for sure. And whether that's a white belt or higher up, I don't care either way. It's going to happen. I would love to do it while I'm still a white belt, but
that's what I was going to say. I think my recommendation for anyone who gets into jiu-jitsu, I had this recommendation given to me, and so I'll share with you guys. Try and compete at every belt, because eventually you no longer are that belt and you don't have an opportunity to. So, for me, I'm definitely going to compete at brown belt because I'm not very far away, I don't think, from the next belt. And when that happens, it's like you just want to be able to say, hey, I compete at each belt. I think it's cool. I think it's important. So get it.
So based on what you just said, Jay, do you guys know when there's like how close you are to a new belt? Like, do you kind of know but don't know? Like, how's that work? Or is it just
that's definitely a Jason question?
Here's what I'll say. It's a very gray area 99% of the time. Meaning, like, just because I could outperform black belts in the gym, like because maybe I'm athletic or bigger or whatever, it doesn't mean I deserve a black belt. Like, or let's just say any belt. Let's just take a blue belt. So let's just say in Jordyn's case, he's, athletic, he's strong, he's conditioned. He probably can outperform quite a few blue belts, I'd imagine. But it doesn't mean he deserves a blue belt yet, because he has to have the technical capacity and show that he's committed to the sport. There's a variety of characteristics that they take into consideration. Like, you don't just get a belt just because you could beat somebody at the higher belt. That's not the way it works. The way it works is you gotta live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. You have to be a practitioner. You have to be able to know the techniques and understand it and be able to articulate it at a certain way and be able to, at blue belt, be defensive. At purple belt, start being offensive. At brown belt, start developing your game. And then at black belt, become an expert in certain things. Or black belt, excuse me. So I would say the long story short is you don't really know when you're going to get it. You might have an idea of when you think it's coming. So for example, we had belt rankings this last year. And like a month or two ago, I knew I wasn't going to get a black belt. I just knew. And I didn't want a black belt. You'd rather be the best at a lower belt than the crappiest at a higher belt. Like 100%. If I'm Jordyn, right? I mean, you don't want that 100%. Target on your back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I agree with you there. And it also, I think, goes by like a case-by-case basis. Like, someone looks at me, I'm an oil field guy. Yeah, I've been training for almost 2 years, but I've technically only trained for 1. So, and then you also look at kids that maybe someone with special needs comes and trains jiu-jitsu. We're going to go and basically scale him on his own scale. And I don't think like everyone has to be the same at blue belt as every single person. I think you're your own blue belt, and I'm sure every academy is different. I know every academy is different, but I think a little bit of it is a case by case basis for sure.
Yeah, Jordyn. So going back to those goals, so you have some endurance goals, obviously some running goals, you have the bench goals, so some strength goals, you're trying to compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How have you found that like those three support each other directly, indirectly? Do they not at all? And they're just kind of like three different areas of passion. Like, how have you found that all of that training works together? Or is it just, I want to be strong, I want to be able to run, and I want to have these skills to protect, and they're just kind of their own thing?
Yeah, so the last 3 years, I actually bulk in the winter. So that's usually when I would hit my strength goals is the first quarter of the year.
Yeah.
This year's kind of backwards.
Bulking season, baby.
Yeah, you're right. And this is actually the first year I haven't bulked. I went from like 147 to I'm now sitting around 190, and I feel pretty lean in a matter of like the last 6-7 years. Just from bulking, probably 5 different bulk phases. Just put on a little, whether it's a lean bulk or a dirty bulk, and then, but whatever. I hit those strength goals usually the first quarter of the year. This year is going to be a little bit different as I'm running a 50 miler April 25th. As I'm sure you both know, you go in waves through fitness, whether you're focused on running, strength, you could do all of them. And I know the term hybrid athlete comes out a lot, but even if you watch those specific people that label themselves as hybrid athletes, they'll go for a strength goal and then they'll take another wave and go for a running goal. And it's just very hard. It would be very hard for me to hit a sub 315 marathon and hit my 325 bench. But I'm going to be kind of using or pushing the needle forward in every single one of those goals day by day. I'm just going to kind of judge it. Where if I go down to the gym, one of the big things I use for my nutrition is if I'm not lifting a lot of weight and it wasn't because of my sleep, it was probably because of my nutrition was a little bit off. I'm not eating enough, or I'm eating less. I'm not eating enough, or I'm eating too much on my runs or whatever. If I feel bloated. So it's going to be one of those things where I've got 365 days to do it. I'm going to try and move the needle forward in every single one, whether it's a sub 315 marathon or 325 bench. And when I hit one, I might move the arrow more towards the other. And we're just going to kind of see how it pans out. But I think being a runner, a lifter, and being on the mats is like the ultimate weapon. And if I look back and even come close to those goals, I'll know I'll be way better than I am today.
Dude, I'm getting so fired up. I'm going to say something now that maybe might injure Jason's ego a little bit, but Jay, you'll be okay. Jordyn, would you ever be? Dude, I would be so fired up if we did a High Rocks together. I think dude, if you would be open to it, if we could find a race.
Well, I heard this guy's just trying to do it for fun, right?
Yeah.
What is going on here? I feel like on air live, I'm not getting the rose.
Gabe, you tell me the date and location and we can train for High Rocks, dude.
Dude, it'd be so
We'll make it happen.
Oh,
that'd be a blast.
All right. So add that to the 2025 list is I'm doing a High Rocks with Jordyn. Oh man, that'd be fun.
You do know I'm right here, right?
Yeah. Oh man.
Now, I don't know if we're gonna beat yours and Jason's time, but
I'm sure you're gonna smoke.
I'll take
our
a little
time.
more serious. I'll have a little more grit for sure.
From
what I've heard
boy.
from Gabe.
Oh boy. Gabe talks
this
so
isn't
much
2008 shit. Jason Khalipa.
I know. What the fuck? Man, I really feel like there's this show. I mean, Liz, this probably there's the Bachelor show, where you get a rose type of thing. It was like back in the day. I just didn't get the rose. Yo, I'm getting kicked
totally
off.
Didn't get the rose. You got kicked off the island.
But this is bullshit. And I was about to have a really good conversation about something that's really important, but now Gabe got me all spun up.
No, but here's the thing. Like, we could do a High Rocks race together, and you guys should definitely like roll together. I think that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Oh, next Origin Camp, you better roll with me for sure.
Oh yeah. Hey, you were at Origin Camp this year, right?
Yeah, I've been at the last 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be there this year. I love that camp.
Yeah, that was a good time.
So as you know, JP Donnell, he has the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu, and at camp there was quite a few people, and there was some good awareness, I thought, for prayer and for faith, and I thought it was really cool. So kind of bringing up that topic, I wanted to bring up this topic, so that was my segue into it. Actually, is faith. So, how did you grow up with faith? How does that affect you now? And then how does that relationship affect your relationship with your fiance? And where are you guys connected on that shared vision?
So it's kind of funny because when I brought up the part in this podcast about reviewing books on the year, going over 5 books. And because there's a lot of books like Atomic Habits, I'll read like one time each year the last 3 years. And Proverbs in the Bible is one of those segments or like chapters, whatever you want to call it, that I do review. I feel like there's a lot of value there and discipline and being intentional and having morals and values, and just reviewing that is very important to me. I'm more the guy that wakes up, I read the Bible verse of the day on my Bible app phone.
Yeah.
And when I'm out there on a run, or especially hunting, believe it or not, that's when I feel the most connected to God. And it's so important to prioritize God in general, in my opinion, because prior to that, I wasn't half the man I am now. And a lot of it was through the breakups. It's kind of funny because each breakup, when I was in a like very low part of my life, I'd always go to God. And then when I got to a high time, I kind of honestly forgot about God. And then right back to the low time. And I really believe that I went back to the low time because I wasn't prioritizing God. And sure, there's going to be highs and lows in my life. But I feel like when you prioritize God, you unconsciously move the needle forward, because it's so important to surround yourself with that message every single day. And I've never read the Bible from front to back. It's one of my goals for the future for sure. So I couldn't recite a bunch of like messages in there, but I know in the Bible verse a day and being intentional about reviewing Proverbs and like iron sharpens iron, being around certain people and individuals in your life is important. And it kind of, that verse right there is like honestly my all-time favorite Bible verse and will forever be. And what I do want to say is, obviously we know the term surround yourself with people, and you're a product of the people you surround yourself with. It's very important today to not only surround yourself with people that you want to be, but surround yourself with the right social media content. Surround yourself with the books that you want to read and the systems you want to put into your own life. Like, you're a product of not only the people you surround yourself with, but you're more of a product of the social media content you surround yourself with, the books you're reading, the podcast you're listening to, because that's technically who you're around, is the social media, the podcast, and more than your friends. Because I'll be on Reels for like 3 hours in one day on an off day, and I'm like, what am I doing? But I'm a product of the content I'm reading into, really.
Yeah, you're consuming. Yeah. I want to ask on that. And I thought that was a really, So I have the Bible app and I open it every morning, and it's really easy because it gives you like a quick scripture. And then there's also a video typically that's below it. And so I'll watch the quick video. It's like 2 minutes, and it's just some person sharing their perspective. But I wanted to ask about, you said something, I want to quote you on it. Basically, it's like, you never felt closer to God than when you're hunting. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I'm not, and neither, I'm not like an avid hunter. I want to be. I want to learn this skill for sure, but it's not something I grew up doing, and I'm looking for the right opportunities to do it through Origin. I think I'm going to get some of those. But talk to me about that. Like, what does that mean? Yeah,
so you're out there just yourself. I mean, once in a while you be with a buddy, but usually, oftentimes for me, is I go out there by myself. Yeah, sure, I have my phone, but it's in my backpack or my pocket. And it's just crazy how much we take for granted, whether you're sitting in a hunting stand or you're walking on this trail. You just kind of are immersed in God's creation. I mean, you've got chickadees flying around you. You see deer, you see all these beautiful animals, and you just feel like one with the earth. As cheesy as it sounds, I truly believe like there's nothing more powerful than being out there. And I feel like I'm with God, like right then and there. And I really don't have the words to describe it, but that is by far the most connected I feel with God, is when I'm out hunting and just immersed in nature.
There's 100% something to that. There's 100% something to also the like disconnected from the kind of like distractions and the technology that we are when you're out there. That just makes you feel different and close. For me, it was running, man. When I first started running this year, I've shared this on the podcast, I was having this just weird anxious energy when my wife was pregnant with our second, because, obviously we had our first, it was great, but there was just so much uncertainty about like, man, what's going to be like to have two now? And I wasn't sleeping great. And because I wasn't able to sleep anyway, I started going out super early in the morning. And we live out in the country, not like the country, but it's like dark. There's no street lights. So if you're going out before the sun comes out, you can see all the stars, which for me, originally growing up in New York, is like, that's something completely different that I love about where we live. And yeah, there's just something about being out in nature, like not even there being like lights and stuff, that just makes you feel super connected to God, to your faith. It's something that I've been like, discovering and leaning into through this podcast, to be 100% honest. And it's definitely easier to lean into that when everything around you is just quiet and free of distractions. And I think nature or going out for a run even before the sun comes up is 100% that. It is for me.
Yeah. And like, I killed a deer in Canada this year, and the first thing I thought was, thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Like, those were like the first, not just the first thoughts I had in my head. No one was around me. I said those words. You walk up to the animal. That's actually the worst thing about hunting, is seeing a dead animal. But it's a blessing. It really is, to fill your freezer. Now I get to have that 1 pound of deer meat. And it's just one of those things that you take a lot of things for granted, and you go out there and you immerse yourself in nature. And you just feel so blessed, grateful. And there's just a sense of gratitude there that's just unparalleled in any other activity for me. Mm-hmm. Running does come close to it, though. Running comes very close.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, like, I think hunting there's a stigma there. But I think if you really talk to the artists, the people who really are doing it the way it's supposed to be done, which for most part, almost every hunter I've ever talked to takes a lot of pride in the art and conserving and supporting this nature. And it's very fascinating. It's something I really want to, 2025, I would like to expose myself more to it. And hopefully I'm gonna be able to have that opportunity through, I don't know, through Origin, Cam Haynes, someone. I just want to be able to be exposed to it the right way. And
through Jordyn Merritt.
Through Jordyn Merritt. I mean,
Northern Maine Hunt.
Dude, Northern Maine Hunt. I mean, I think I'm going to freeze, but I will see you at the Origin camp, which will be a lot of fun. But Jordyn, I really appreciate you being on the show, man. This has been a really cool conversation. I think that one of the things that we love about this podcast is that it gives us an opportunity to get, and one of my goals is even to further this, but further your echo chamber, further the people you talk to, get different experiences. Like, I've never really talked to anybody who spends a month out at the ocean and then a month home. And so it's really cool for me to hear this. And I know that for our audience, they've received a lot from this. So I just want to say thank you for your time. Dude, keep grappling, keep getting after it. And I am really disappointed that Gabe has chosen you and given you the rose. But I will hopefully redeem myself. Gabe,
we might have to make one condition there, is that he gets on the mats this year.
That's fair.
Look what you did. Fair. Look what you did.
All right, it's fair. Now Jason's all in. And then, yeah, man, Jordyn, thank you so much for being on the show. And I mean, I think that, you understand this, but the only thing that I would say is, like, keep sharing everything you're sharing, man. Like, your social media page, since I stumbled on it, like, dude, it fires me up. This podcast fired me up. And we just need, like, more guys out there putting out the message, regardless of what, some people might say or whatever, so that other men start doing the same, man. So just keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's so important, and really appreciate the fact that you're putting out that message.
Yeah, definitely keep doing what you guys are doing. Love the podcast. Huge fan for sure of both of you guys as individuals and as a team here on the pod. Very thankful you guys had me on here. You guys know my mission. I feel like I preached it well on here, and I just want to make a difference, even if it's a little bit, in every single person's life that views my content. So thank you for having me on here and helping me spread the message.
Hell yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys for checking out the episode. Make sure to go back, check out other episodes with Gabe and I, with our, home team, with our guests. We have a ton of different episodes out there. If you got a bunch of value from this episode, which I'm sure you did, because I know I did, make sure to share it with a friend and keep training hard.